Love can blind you to the truth, especially when vows are wielded as weapons. In this story, a man shares how his wife's betrayal shattered his world, turning cherished memories into painful lies, and forced him to rebuild from the ashes. My name is Daniel Hayes. I'm 41, and I live in Seattle, Washington. I'm a lawyer, the kind who dots every I and crosses every T, but at heart, I've always been a romantic. I believed in love that lasts, the kind you build a legacy on kids. A home, a future carved out together. For 15 years, I thought I had that with Karen, my wife. We met in law school, two ambitious kids with big dreams. She was sharp, witty, the kind of woman who could light up a room or tear apart a deposition. We built a life together, a house in Capitol Hill, two kids, Emma, 12, and Liam, 9, and a rhythm that felt like forever. Last year, we renewed our vows. It was my idea. I wanted to mark 15 years with something meaningful, something to remind us of what we built through late nights at the firm, parenting chaos, and the occasional fight over who forgot to unload the dishwasher. Karen hesitated at first, said it was a lot of planning, but I convinced her. I planned it all, a small ceremony at Pike Place Market, where we'd had our first date, with fairy lights, a string quartet, and our kids holding candles. Karen looked radiant in a simple white dress, her eyes locked on mine as she promised to love me through every storm. I framed the photos, hung them in our living room. Every time I passed them, I felt like we'd made it. But something shifted after that day. Karen started working late, claiming client calls that dragged past midnight. She'd always been driven. Her marketing job demanded it. But this was different. Her phone buzzed constantly, and she'd angle it away from me. Smiling too quickly when I asked about it. "Just work, Dan," she'd say, pulling out her phone to show me our vow renewal photos. "See? I'm all yours." I'd nod, ignoring the knot in my stomach. I trusted her. I trusted us. We'd been through too much. Late-night study sessions, miscarriages before Emma, financial stress when I started my own practice. Those photos, her hand in mine, they were proof we were solid. I'm meticulous by nature. It's why I'm good at my job. I notice details, a missing receipt, a vague answer, a glance that lingers too long. But with Karen, I turned it off. I didn't want to be the paranoid husband, the guy who questions his wife's every move. So when she started mentioning her boss, Greg, more often casual comments about his visionary ideas or late meetings, I brushed it off. Stress, I told myself, she's just stressed. I'd make her coffee, kiss her forehead, and tell her we'd get through it. She'd smile, but it felt rehearsed, like she was reading lines. One night, I caught her whispering on the phone in the garage. I stood at the door, frozen, as she said, "I can't talk now, he's home." My heart pounded, but when she came inside, she flashed that vow renewal photo on her phone again. "Look at us, Dan," she said, her voice soft. "We're good, right?" I nodded, but the knot in my gut tightened. I started noticing other things. Her perfume was stronger some days. Her car smelled like cologne I didn't wear, and she'd dodge questions about her schedule. I told myself I was overthinking it. Love makes you blind, doesn't it? You see what you want to see. Then came the day that broke me. I was at the office, prepping for a case, when my colleague Sarah pulled me aside. She looked nervous, which wasn't like her. "Dan, I need to show you something," she said, handing me a phone, not Karen's usual phone, but a second one. A cheap burner I'd never seen. The screen was open to texts, hundreds of them, between Karen and Greg, plans to meet at hotels, talk of a new life in Chicago, promises to wait until the time is right. The worst part? A message from Karen, sent the day after our vow renewal. "Don't worry, he bought it. The vows were perfect cover." I stared at the screen, my world collapsing. Those photos I loved? They were her alibi. The moment I saw those texts on Karen's burner phone, it was like someone pulled the air out of my lungs. I stood in my office, Sarah hovering nearby, her face a mix of pity and unease. The phone felt heavy in my hand, like it was burning through my skin. I scrolled through more messages, each one a new cut. Karen and Greg had been planning for months. Hotels, weekend, work trips. Even talk of a new apartment, she'd written. "Dan's so wrapped up in the kids and work, he doesn't suspect a thing." That line hit me hardest. I wasn't just betrayed. I was invisible. I handed the phone back to Sarah, muttering a thank you. She asked if I was okay, but I couldn't answer. How do you answer that? My wife of 15 years, the woman I'd built a life with, had used our vow renewal, a moment I thought was sacred, as a prop to cover her affair. I drove home in a daze, the Seattle rain blurring my windshield. Our house, with its cozy porch and Emma's bike leaning against the garage, looked foreign, like it belonged to someone else's life. Inside, Karen was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner like nothing was wrong. "Hey, Han," she said, glancing up with that practiced smile. I wanted to scream, to throw the phone's texts in her face, but I didn't have it. Sarah had found it in the office parking lot, probably dropped by Karen during one of her late-night calls. I just stared at her, searching for the woman I married. Was she ever real? The kids were upstairs, Emma practicing her violin, Liam playing some video game. Their normalcy felt like a cruel joke. I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. My mind was a mess, replaying every moment of the last year, the late nights, the perfume, the way she'd pull out those vow renewal photos to reassure me. I'd been so proud of those photos, hung them like a badge of our love. Now they mocked me from the living room wall. I sat on the couch after dinner, staring at them, Karen's arm around me, her smile so convincing. How long had she been lying? Was it just Greg, or had there been others? My lawyer brain kicked in, analyzing, dissecting, but it didn't help. No amount of evidence could explain why. Sleep didn't come that night. I lay in bed, Karen breathing softly beside me, oblivious to the storm in my head. I kept thinking about the kids, Emma, with her quiet determination, and Liam, who still hugged me like I was his hero. What would this do to them? I imagined telling them their mom had planned a new life without us. The thought made my chest ache. I got up at 3 a.m., went to my home office, and started writing notes, dates, clues, anything I could remember about Karen's behavior. It was what I did at work. Build a case. But this wasn't a case. This was my life. The next day, I called in sick. I couldn't face the office, not with Sarah's pitying eyes or the chance of running into Karen's colleagues. Instead, I dug deeper. I checked our bank statements, something I hadn't done in years because Karen handled the finances. There were charges I didn't recognize, hotels in Bellevue, dinners at places we never went. I felt like a detective in my own marriage, and I hated it. Every discovery was a new betrayal, a receipt for a spa day she never mentioned, a cash withdrawal the day after our vow renewal. I kept thinking, how did I miss this? I'm supposed to notice everything. I started questioning myself. Was I too focused on work? Had I neglected her? We'd had our fights, stupid ones about laundry or bigger ones about my long hours. But I always thought we were solid. I'd bring her coffee in bed, plan date nights, listen when she vented about work. I wasn't perfect, but I tried. The worst part was the doubt creeping in. If Karen could lie so easily, what else had I misjudged? My career, my friends, my instincts. Everything felt shaky. I looked at our wedding ring on my finger, the one I'd worn proudly for 15 years. It felt like a lie now, too. By the end of the week, I was a ghost in my own house. Karen noticed, asked if I was stressed about a case. I nodded. Too raw to confront her. I needed proof, a plan, something to hold on to. But deep down, I was terrified of what came next. Living with Karen after seeing those texts was like walking through a minefield blindfolded. Every day, I put on a mask, smiling at breakfast, kissing her goodbye, playing the part of the devoted husband. Inside, I was unraveling. I'd sit in my car before work, staring at the dashboard, trying to make sense of how my life had become a lie. The woman I'd loved for 15 years was planning to leave me for her boss, Greg, and I was too scared to confront her, not because I didn't want answers, but because I didn't know who I'd be once the truth was out. The kids kept me grounded, or at least they tried. Emma would practice her violin in the living room, the notes sharp and halting, and I'd clap like it was a symphony. Liam would drag me into his video game world, explaining strategies I didn't understand. I'd nod, ruffle his hair, and pretend I was present, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying Karen's texts. The vows were perfect cover. Those words haunted me. I'd look at her across the dinner table, laughing with the kids, and wonder how she could act so normal. Was she that good at lying, or had I just stopped seeing her? I started digging deeper, like a lawyer building a case against his own life. I couldn't access the burner phone again. Sarah had turned it over to the office's lost and found. But I had enough. I cross-referenced bank statements with Karen's work calendar, a client dinner, matched a $200 charge at a waterfront restaurant, a conference in Tacoma lined up with a hotel receipt. Each clue was a punch to the gut, but I couldn't stop. It was like I needed to prove to myself that this was real, that I wasn't crazy. I even checked her work email, which I had access to because we shared a family laptop. Nothing blatant, but there were emails from Greg with vague subject lines like follow up or next steps. My stomach churned imagining what they meant. The paranoia started bleeding into everything. At work, I'd second-guess my colleagues. Did they know? Were they covering for her? Sarah tried to check in, but I brushed her off. I didn't want pity. I didn't want anyone seeing how broken I was. My cases suffered. I missed a filing deadline, something I'd never done in 15 years. My partner at the firm, Mike, pulled me aside, asked if I was okay. "You're off your game, Dan," he said. I lied, blamed a tough case. But the truth was, I was drowning in doubt. If I couldn't see Karen's betrayal, what else had I missed? My whole life felt like a house of cards. Nights were the worst. Karen would curl up next to me, her head on my chest, and I'd lie there, stiff, staring at the ceiling. I wanted to ask her everything. Why she did it, when she stopped loving me, how she could smile at our kids while planning to leave. But I was terrified of her answer. What if she admitted it and felt nothing? What if she blamed me? I kept thinking about our vow renewal, how I'd poured my heart into it. I'd written my own vows, promised to choose her every day. She'd cried, said she didn't deserve me. Now I wondered if those tears were guilt, not love. I started avoiding her. I'd stay late at the office, claiming depositions. I'd take the kids to soccer or music lessons, lingering in the car to avoid going home. Emma noticed first. "Dad, you're quiet lately," she said one day, her brown eyes searching mine. "She's too perceptive for 12. I forced a smile, said I was just tired, but I saw the worry in her face, and it killed me. Liam was easier. He'd ramble about his games, oblivious to the tension, but I knew they'd feel it eventually. Kids always do. By the end of that month, I was a shell. I'd lost weight, stopped running, barely slept. The photos on our living room wall, the ones from our vow renewal, felt like a taunt. I'd catch myself staring at them, trying to pinpoint the moment Karen decided to betray me. Was it before the ceremony? During? I wanted to tear them down, but I couldn't. Not yet. I needed to figure out what to do next, for me, for the kids, but every step felt like walking toward a cliff. The longer I carried the truth about Karen's affair, the heavier it got. It was like a stone in my chest, pressing harder every time she smiled at me or touched my arm. I'd been avoiding her for weeks, hiding behind work and the kids. But I knew I couldn't keep it up forever. My lawyer instinct screamed to confront her, to lay out the evidence, bank statements, receipts, the memory of those burner phone texts. But my heart wasn't ready. What do you say to the person who broke your world? How do you ask why they stopped loving you? I started planning the confrontation like it was a case. I'd sit in my home office after the kids were asleep, scribbling notes on a legal pad. I'd write questions. When did it start? Do you love him? What about Emma and Liam? I'd rehearse what I'd say, imagining her reactions, denial, tears, maybe even anger. I'd tell myself I'd stay calm, keep it civil for the kids' sake. But then I'd picture her flashing that vow renewal photo, the one she used to lie to me, and my resolve would crack. I wanted to yell, to demand how she could use our love as a shield while planning a new life with Greg. I kept digging, too, like I could find some clue that would make it all make sense. I checked our phone records, Karen's late-night calls to a number I didn't recognize, always short, probably Greg. I found an email receipt for a plane ticket to Chicago, one way. Dated 3 months out, Chicago, the city she and Greg had mentioned in those texts. It hit me like a freight train. She wasn't just cheating. She was ready to walk away. I sat there, staring at the screen, my hand shaking. I thought about Emma's science fair, Liam's soccer games, our Sunday mornings making pancakes. Did any of it matter to her? The guilt started creeping in. Maybe I'd pushed her away. I'd been working long hours, chasing partner at the firm, thinking it was for our future. Had I missed signs she was unhappy? I remembered nights she'd wanted to talk, and I'd been too tired, promising we'd catch up later. Later never came, but then I'd think about her lies, the burner phone, the way she'd look me in the eye and show me those vow renewal photos. No, this wasn't my fault. I wasn't perfect, but I didn't deserve this. I tried to keep things normal for the kids, but it was like acting in a play I hated. I'd drive Emma to violin lessons, listening to her chatter about school, and not at the right moments. Liam would ask me to play catch in the backyard, and I'd force a smile. Tossing the ball while my mind screamed about Karen's betrayal, Emma asked me once, "Dad, are you and Mom fighting?" I froze, my throat tight. "No, sweetheart." I lied, just busy with work. She didn't push, but I saw the doubt in her eyes. Kids know when something's wrong, even if they don't say it. Work was falling apart, too. I'd snap at paralegals, miss meetings, stare at case files without reading them. Mike, my partner, cornered me again. "Dan, you're scaring me," he said. "Talk to me." I almost told him, but the words wouldn't come. Admitting it out loud felt like making it real. Instead, I mumbled about stress and promised to get it together. I didn't. I was too busy obsessing over Karen, checking her purse for that burner phone, listening for whispers when she thought I wasn't home. One night, I almost cracked. Karen was on the phone in the kitchen, her voice low. I stood outside the door, heart pounding, ready to barge in and demand the truth. But then Liam called from upstairs, needing help with homework. I backed off, my chest tight. I realized I was scared not just of her answers, but of what came after. Divorce? Custody battles? Telling the kids their mom wanted a new life? I wasn't ready to lose my family, even if it was already broken. By then, I barely recognized myself. I'd stopped shaving, lived on coffee, and jumped at every text notification, thinking it might be more proof. The vow renewal photos still hung on the wall, and I'd glare at them like they were the enemy. I wanted to confront Karen, to end this limbo, but something held me back. Maybe it was hope, stupid and stubborn, that she'd come clean, say it was a mistake, or maybe I just didn't know how to let go of the life I thought we had. I couldn't keep living like a detective in my own marriage, but the fear of confronting Karen paralyzed me. Every day, I'd tell myself, "Today's the day, dash." But then I'd see Emma and Liam, their lives so blissfully unaware, and I'd choke. I was trapped in this limbo, knowing the truth but unable to act. The evidence piled up, bank charges, that Chicago plane ticket, Karen's late-night whispers. But it wasn't enough to push me over the edge. I needed something undeniable, something that would force my hand, and then it happened. It was a Saturday, one of those rare Seattle days where the sun broke through the clouds. Karen said she had a work brunch, which I knew was a lie. I'd seen an email from Greg about meeting at a cafe downtown. I didn't plan to follow her. Spying felt like sinking to her level, but I couldn't sit still. I dropped the kids at my sister's, claiming I needed to run errands, and drove to the cafe. There they were. Through the window, Karen and Greg, laughing, her hand on his arm. She looked at him, the way she used to look at me, back when we were young and dreaming of a future. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel, my vision blurring with tears. That was the moment I knew I couldn't pretend anymore. I didn't storm in. I drove home, my mind racing. The house was quiet, the kids' toys scattered in the living room, our vow renewal photos staring down at me. I felt like a fool for believing in them, for thinking love could be enough. When Karen got home, she was all smiles, spinning a story about her client meeting. I let her talk, my heart pounding. The kids were still at my sister's, so it was just us. I couldn't wait any longer. "Karen," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "we need to talk." Her smile faltered, just for a second, but she recovered, asking what was wrong. I didn't ease into it. "I know about Greg," I said. "I know about the burner phone, the texts, the hotels, Chicago." Her face went pale, and for the first time in months, I saw the real her. No mask, no lies. She tried to deny it, stammering about misunderstandings, but I cut her off. "I saw you today, at the cafe. Don't lie to me anymore." The silence that followed was deafening. She sank onto the couch, hands in her lap, staring at the floor. I waited, expecting tears, an apology, something. Instead, she said, "I didn't mean for you to find out like this." Not, "I'm sorry," not, I love you. Just that. My chest ached, but I pressed on, asking how long, why, what she planned to do. She admitted it started a year ago, that Greg understood her in ways I didn't. She said she felt trapped in our life, like she'd lost herself. The vow renewal. She whispered, I thought it would fix things, but it didn't. Fix things? She'd used it to lie, to cover her tracks. I felt sick. I asked about the kids, and that's when she cried. I wasn't going to leave them, she said, but I didn't believe her. The Chicago ticket told a different story. I wanted to scream, to ask how she could plan a new life while tucking Emma and Liam into bed each night. But I didn't. I just stood there, numb, as she sobbed. Part of me wanted to hold her, to fix this. But the other part, the part that had seen those texts, that photo, knew it was over. We didn't resolve anything that night. She slept in the guest room, and I lay awake, replaying her words. Trapped. Was that how she saw our life? Our home? Our kids? Me? Were we her cage? I thought about every fight, every late night at work, wondering if I'd pushed her away, but then I'd remember her lies, the way she'd smile and show me those photos, and the guilt would turn to anger. I wasn't the one who broke us. The next morning, I looked at Emma and Liam's drawings on the fridge, their little lives so fragile. I didn't know how to tell them, or if I even should. Karen was quiet, avoiding my eyes. We were strangers in our own home now, and I had no idea what came next. All I knew was that the life I'd built, the love I'd trusted, was gone. The morning after confronting Karen, our house felt like a stranger's. The coffee pot gurgled, the kids' cereal bowls sat in the sink, but the air was thick with what we weren't saying. Karen moved like a ghost, avoiding my eyes as she packed lunches for Emma and Liam. I wanted to talk, to figure out what came next, but the words wouldn't come. How do you plan a future when your past was a lie? I drove the kids to school, their chatter filling the silence, but my mind was stuck on Karen's words. I felt trapped. They echoed, cutting deeper each time. Back home, Karen was gone. Off to work, she'd left a note. I stood in the living room, staring at our vow renewal photos. I'd loved them once, the way they captured us smiling, hands clasped, Emma and Liam giggling in the background. Now they were a cruel reminder of her deception. I took them down, one by one, stacking them in a drawer. I couldn't throw them out. Not yet, but I couldn't look at them either. The bare wall felt like a metaphor for my life. Stripped, empty, waiting for something new. I couldn't imagine. I called my sister, Rachel, that afternoon. She's the only person I've ever trusted with the ugly stuff. I told her everything. The burner phone, the texts, Chicago, the cafe. She listened, didn't interrupt, just let me spill. When I finished, she said, Dan, you don't deserve this, but you've got to protect yourself and the kids. She was right, but I didn't know how. Divorce? Custody? The thought of splitting Emma and Liam's lives in half made my stomach turn. Rachel offered to have us stay with her, but I wasn't ready to leave. This was my home, my kids' home. I wasn't the one who'd broken it. Work became my escape, though I was barely functioning. I'd hide in my office, door closed, pretending to review case files while staring at nothing. Mike, my partner, stopped asking what was wrong. He just gave me lighter cases, like he knew I was fragile. I hated that he could see it. I'd always been the guy who had it together, the one who fixed problems. Now I couldn't fix the one that mattered most. I started researching divorce lawyers, just to know my options. It felt like betraying Karen, which was absurd. She'd betrayed me first, hadn't she? Karen and I barely spoke that week. We'd pass each other in the hall, exchange stiff good mornings, and focus on the kids. Emma noticed the tension. She'd linger at dinner, watching us like she was waiting for an explanation. Liam was oblivious. Thank God. Still lost in his video games. I wanted to shield them, but I didn't know how. Should I tell them? Wait. Every parenting book says kids need honesty, but how do you say, your mom planned a new life without us? I couldn't even say it to myself. I started therapy, something I'd always scoffed at. Rachel pushed me into it, said I needed to sort my head out. The therapist, a quiet woman named Claire, asked me to describe how I felt. I didn't know where to start. Angry? Heartbroken? Stupid? All of it. I guess. I told her about the vow renewal, how Karen used it as her alibi. Claire nodded. Said betrayal like that shakes your sense of reality. She was right. I questioned everything now. Every memory, every promise. Had Karen ever loved me? Or was I just a stepping stone to something else? One night, Karen tried to talk. The kids were asleep, and she sat across from me at the kitchen table, her hands fidgeting. Dan, I'm sorry, she said. I didn't want to hurt you. I waited, hoping for more, an explanation, a reason. But she just repeated, I'm sorry. It wasn't enough. I asked if she was still seeing Greg. She hesitated, then nodded. My heart sank, but I wasn't surprised. What do you want? I asked. She didn't answer, just looked away. That silence said everything. She didn't want us anymore. I lay awake that night, thinking about Emma and Liam, their little lives caught in this mess. I thought about the man I'd been, trusting, romantic, believing in forever. That guy was gone, replaced by someone harder, more guarded. I didn't know if I liked him, but I knew I had to keep going, for the kids, for myself. I just didn't know what going looked like yet. Karen's admission that she was still seeing Greg left me hollow, but it also lit a fire under me. I couldn't keep living in this half-life, tiptoeing around the wreckage of our marriage. The kids deserved better, and so did I, that night. After her weak apology and her silence when I asked what she wanted, I made a decision. I was done waiting for her to choose us. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I had to start moving toward it, even if every step felt like walking on glass. The next day, I called a divorce lawyer, a guy named Paul who Mike recommended. Paul was blunt, professional, exactly what I needed. We met at his office, and I laid it all out, the affair, the burner phone, the Chicago ticket. The vow renewal she'd used as a lie. He took notes, asked about assets, custody, alimony. It was surreal, reducing 15 years of marriage to legal terms. You've got a strong case, he said, but it'll get messy. I nodded, my throat tight. Messy was fine. I just wanted to protect Emma and Liam. Telling my sister Rachel about the lawyer felt like crossing a line. She hugged me, said I was doing the right thing. You're not the villain here, Dan, she said. I wanted to believe her, but guilt gnawed at me. Was I breaking our family? Should I have tried harder to fix things? Rachel shut that down fast. She made her choice, she said. You're just cleaning up the mess. She offered to help with the kids, to be there when I told them. I wasn't ready for that yet, but knowing she had my back gave me strength. At home, Karen and I were like roommates with a shared secret. We kept up appearances for the kids, dinners together, bedtime stories. But the tension was suffocating. Emma was quieter now, her eyes darting between us. One night, she asked, Are you getting divorced? My heart stopped. I wanted to lie, to say everything was fine, but I couldn't. We're working through some things, I said, hating how vague it sounded. She didn't push, but I saw the fear in her face. Liam, bless him, was still clueless. But I knew his world would shatter soon, too. Therapy with Claire helped me untangle the mess in my head. I told her about the confrontation, Karen's apology, the lawyer. She asked how I felt about losing the life I'd planned, kids, home, forever with Karen. I didn't have a clean answer. Angry, sure, but also sad, like I was grieving someone who wasn't dead. Claire said betrayal does that. It kills the version of the person you loved. She pushed me to focus on what I could control. Myself, the kids, my choices. It sounded simple, but it was the hardest thing I'd ever done. I started small. I went back to running, pounding the Seattle streets at dawn, the rain washing away some of the fog in my mind. I cooked dinners with the kids, letting Emma chop vegetables and Liam stir sauces, their laughter a lifeline. I even took down the last of the vow renewal photos, the ones I'd hidden in a drawer. I boxed them up, tucked them in the attic. It wasn't closure, not yet, but it was a start. Work got better, too. I threw myself into cases, staying late not to avoid Karen, but to rebuild my confidence. Mike noticed, gave me a big case to lead. Good to have you back, he said. I wasn't back, not fully, but I was trying. I stopped checking Karen's phone records or emails. I didn't need more proof. I knew enough. One evening, Karen asked to talk again. I braced myself, expecting another half-hearted sorry. Instead, she said she was moving out. I need space, she said. I'm staying with a friend. I knew friend meant Greg, but I didn't argue. Part of me was relieved. The house would feel empty, but at least I wouldn't have to see her every day, pretending we were okay. What about the kids? I asked. She promised to stay involved, to split time. I didn't trust her, but I nodded. For Emma and Liam, I tried to make this work. As she packed a bag, I watched from the doorway, feeling like a stranger in my own life. The romantic in me, the guy who believed in forever, was gone. But the father, the lawyer, the man who'd survived this betrayal, he was still here, ready to fight for what mattered. I just had to figure out how. Karen's moving out left a quiet I wasn't prepared for. The house felt too big without her footsteps, her coffee mug in the sink, her voice calling the kids to dinner. I'd wanted her gone, but the emptiness hit harder than I expected. Emma and Liam noticed it immediately. Emma, always the perceptive one, asked why Mom's stuff was gone. I told her the truth, or part of it. Mom, and I need some time apart to figure things out. She nodded, but her eyes were glassy. Liam just hugged me, too young to understand but old enough to feel the shift. I held them both, promising we'd be okay, even if I wasn't sure I believed it. The first week without Karen was a blur. I threw myself into dad mode, making sure Emma's violin lessons and Liam's soccer practices happened on time. I burned a few dinners, forgot to sign a permission slip, but we got through it. The kids were my anchor. Their routine's a lifeline. At night, though, when they were asleep, the silence was brutal. I'd sit in the living room, no vow renewal photos to haunt me anymore, and wonder how we got here. I kept going to therapy, where Claire pushed me to. Focus on what I could build, not what I'd lost. You're not just a husband, she said. You're Daniel. Who do you want to be now? That question stuck with me. I'd been Karen's husband, Emma and Liam's dad, the lawyer who never missed a deadline, but who was I without her? I started finding answers in small ways. I took the kids hiking in the Olympics, something Karen never liked doing. We laughed, got muddy, ate too many granola bars. I signed up for a cooking class, determined not to ruin another lasagna. I even reconnected with old law school friends, guys I'd lost touch with when marriage and kids took over. They didn't pry, just invited me for beers and talked about sports or cases. It felt good to laugh, to feel like myself again, even if it was fleeting. Work became a refuge. I nailed the big case Mike gave me, earning a nod from the partners. I wasn't the broken guy hiding in his office anymore. I was Daniel Hayes, the lawyer who could still win. But the victories felt hollow when I came home to a quiet house. Karen was still involved with the kids, picking them up for weekends. But our conversations were cold, logistical. She never mentioned Greg, and I didn't ask. I heard from Rachel that Karen was living with him now, in some downtown condo. It stung, but I was learning to let it go. She'd made her choice. The hardest part was the kids. Emma started acting out, skipping violin, snapping at me over small things. I sat her down one night, asked what was wrong. I miss Mom, she said, tears streaming. Why doesn't she come home? I wanted to tell her everything, to say Karen chose someone else, but I couldn't. Instead, I hugged her and said, Mom loves you, but sometimes adults need to live apart. It was a half-truth, but it was all I had. Liam was quieter, clinging to me more. I started reading to him every night, his head on my shoulder, trying to give him the stability Karen took away. I saw Paul, the divorce lawyer, again. We filed the initial papers, and I braced for the fight. Karen didn't contest much. She agreed to joint custody, didn't push for the house. It felt too easy, like she was already checked out. Part of me wanted her to fight, to show she cared about what we built. But she didn't. The romantic in me, the one who believed in vows, was dead. In his place was a guy who valued actions over words, who knew trust had to be earned. I wasn't healed, not by a long shot. Some days, I'd see a couple at the park and feel a pang for what we'd lost, but I was moving forward. I'd look at Emma's drawings on the fridge, Liam's soccer trophy on the shelf, and know I was enough for them. I didn't need Karen's photos or promises anymore. I was building something new, for us, one messy, painful step at a time, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe.